Listen, there's so much going on. You tell me where you want to start. Do you want to talk, because I haven't talked about this at all, Pierre Poilievre's leadership review. Do you want to get into this?
Yeah, I think that there are a couple of things that are worth mentioning. I think he's going to sail through with the 2,000 or so people who are up there in Calgary with him. They're mostly from that area. And the other thing is, too, I mean, look, the Ontario Conservatives are having their own stuff this weekend. He's going to get a good number. I think probably over 80. That's not the thing. It's not what he gets from die-hard Conservatives that really matters. It's what happens after. You know, back in the day, in my first take at politics, the leader of our party, the Liberals in Quebec, was Daniel Johnson, a finer, more intelligent, more experienced human being you won't find. In fact, he was so good, when Robert Bourassa stepped down, it was just Mr. Johnson who raised his hand, and everybody said, yeah, you're great, and they took him in as leader. 4 years later, people were saying, we have doubts as to whether or not we can win an election. And that's very, very tough for the person involved. But Mr. Charest was brought in, and he even got more votes than the PQ in his first election, and then he won in his second election. The people who were in the Conservative Party are proud, hardworking people. There are a couple of things worth noting. They are very worried about ever being able to win an election with Pierre Poilievre. The caucus, those are the elected members. They're also very proud, hardworking people who are well known in their area, in their ridings. And, you know, they look at Pierre Poilievre, who wasn't even able to win in his own riding in the last election, had to get someone who did win to step down to take his seat to get elected in Alberta. And when he gets back, a lot of them remember just how tough it was being with Pierre Poilievre and his apparatchiks. They treated them as subordinates. They were not good with the caucus. There was not caucus management. There was caucus dictation. And so there are a lot of people spinning their thumbs right now saying, okay, buddy, we don't think you can do it. And I've been talking to a lot of them, and they all have the same feeling. Even the ones who are fans of Poilievre think he's done what he could, did get a pretty good number, a great number in terms of their percentage vote in the last campaign. They're saying he's not going to be able to beat Carney. Carney is so far ahead of him. One-on-one. The parties are actually not that far apart. The Liberals are a few points ahead, but nothing major, nothing that couldn't be overcome. But it's not Pierre Poilievre who's going to be able to do it. And I think that's going to be a much tougher run for him. If there's not an early election, which there might well be, but if there's not an early election, watch the pressure start to grow on Pierre Poilievre.
Meanwhile, closer to home, we have a race going on for leadership of the CAQ, Christine Fréchette, Bernard Drinville, and it looks like, this horse race has Christine Fréchette starting to pull ahead.
Really pulling ahead, and her economic credentials are really being looked at and considered extraordinarily important. The Léger outfit has a poll out today. We just had some parts of it that we were able to release on air on a French panel show that I do, and the full thing will be in the Journal de Montréal tomorrow. This is big stuff. You see Christine Fréchette actually within hailing distance of Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon, which is an incredible sea change. She is so far ahead of Bernard Drinville, and that shouldn't surprise anybody who's counting one simple objective thing. How many MPs and cabinet ministers support her, Christine Fréchette, and how many support her opponent, Bernard Drinville? She's got so many more cabinet ministers, and these, Aaron, are the people who work 18 hours a day, know how tough it is to get this stuff done, and they all see in her somebody who could lead their party into the next election and maybe win. They do not see that at all with Bernard Drinville. I mean, it's as simple as that. Going back to our previous discussion about Pierre Poilievre, can Drinville win? Answer, no. Can Christine Fréchette win? Oh, yeah. Wait till you see these polling numbers. And the person who should be the most concerned with what he's seeing here is named Charles Milliard. His numbers are not good. The Liberals' numbers are still not good amongst French-speaking Quebecers. He's not very well known, to be fair to Milliard, but that's a handicap that's not going to get better because they've got this race going on right now for the CAQ. And so Christine Fréchette is going to be front and center. She's very likable. She's extraordinarily telegenic. She masters her files, and she's a good, easy-going person. And I'm waiting to see the full results, but somebody's already given me a hint that there's going to be a pretty strong indication that a lot of erstwhile Liberal voters are giving a very serious look towards the CAQ if Christine Fréchette gets in. So I'd be very worried about her arrival if I were a Quebec Liberal.
So my question is, Tom, with respect to Christine Fréchette, I think most people, I mean, when I say most people, those who might be polled, don't really have much of an idea of who she is. So by virtue of the fact that she seems to be so far ahead so early, how did she get this sort of notoriety, if you will, where people are going to say, yeah, I'm looking at her, she's my favorite? Where'd that come from?
Let's go back a year and a bit ago. The Conservatives, 28 points ahead of the Libs, but it was a parking lot. It was just people saying, yeah, I'm going to vote Conservative, meaning I want to get rid of Justin Trudeau. Right. I can't stand seeing the guy anymore. Okay. Trudeau leaves. Everything changes. They brought in Carney, likable guy, very competent. People are going, oof, I don't have to vote for Poilievre. I can vote Liberal and get somebody who knows what they're doing. Same thing with the CAQ. The CAQ are not all a bunch of nincompoops. Yeah, some of them are, but they're not all that bad. Some of them, they vote. Most of them, a lot of them have experience in government, much more than the Liberals who are the candidates who are running. So they're looking at Christine Fréchette and saying, okay, we've got a party that did not do well on the economy. What's her strong suit? The economy. She's the economy minister. She was the head of the Chamber of Commerce in Montreal. Look, I'll put it to you with another example. The Parti Québécois is doing nothing but praising Bernard Drinville. At every turn, every péquiste that I know that I work with on a panel show sings the praises of Bernard Drinville because they would love him to see him do well. They're all knocking Christine Fréchette, like sometimes violently knocking her, because they see in her the Mark Carney of the CAQ, the person who could completely upset the apple cart. All these fake numbers about the big popularity of the PQ when 2/3 of Quebecers don't want a referendum. And Christine Fréchette is as clear as a bell. There will be no referendum if she's the leader of the CAQ. So this is going to move votes, Aaron, and it shouldn't be underestimated. Anybody in the Liberal fold who's been looking at this saying, oh, it's our turn, people are going to come over to us, they better start getting worried, because if what I'm getting as information is true, there are a lot of Liberals who are willing to vote for the CAQ if she's the leader.
By the way, has Bernard Drinville actually come out and said there would be no referendum under him if he was elected leader?
Oh, yeah. That's a key part of the undertaking of the CAQ. And when Legault said the people running are all adhering to these basic tenets of the CAQ, yes. She says it wisely because she's upbraiding Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon. She's actually fighting him about it. And she goes, it makes no sense whatsoever to be having a referendum now.
Okay.
So the now part, of course, is where she gets a little bit of purchase with the Wigglers. The wiggle room.
Okay. Last thing I will ask you was a big story, I guess, beginning of the day. Donald Trump tweeting out last night that for whatever reason, he's decided to go after Bombardier. This has to do with jet certification of an American company. Their plane's called Gulfstream. Every analyst I've heard, Tom, talking about this has said, you know what? There's nothing he can do. The FAA certifies planes. And so he's creating a great deal of, I guess, angst here because we saw Bombardier's stock and the TSX today fall fairly significantly. What do you think this is about?
Well, I'm going to give you one piece that someone raised in one of the shows that I was doing, and I thought it was very interesting, that it's shameless how Trump and the people around him, think Lutnick and a few others, Dissent, are making tons of money because they know when the next crisis is going to happen. Oh, we're going to go attack Greenland. Dollar drops. Stock market drops, gold goes through the roof, and then Trump comes in 2 days later and says, only kidding, we're not going to do anything like that. Everything goes back. So there are people making tons of money on that. The drop at the end of the trading day today for stock for Bombardier was over 6%, which is already substantial, but this morning it was way over 10%. And so there are people who are going to be making a lot of money on these things. And that's the first thing to point out. The second thing to point out is certification is all about public protection. It's not true that Gulfstream is having trouble getting its jets certified. All of its new jets are certified here in Canada because they meet all the norms. What's not certified are some of the older models that are stink pots, that are polluting, and they make a ton of noise that are way beyond any acceptable limits. And the Canadian government has limits to make life bearable for people in cities when jets are landing. So these are new norms that are not being pulled in as a trick against Gulfstream. They're just norms that apply to everyone. And by the way, there's a way of retrofitting planes with a hush kit, they would call it, to make sure they can meet these standards. But this is typical of Trump. He's probably sat in a meeting with a lobbyist or somebody from Gulfstream, and they lamented, this is terrible. The Canadians are refusing to certify. That is pure BS, but it doesn't stop Trump from repeating it. It's like, remember when he was going to take over, when he came in, he was going to take over the Panama Canal because the Chinese government was doing this and that with Panama. This is the type of thing that happens with Trump. He half-heartedly listens to a conversation or a pitch from a lobbyist. It becomes national policy overnight, and it's very disrupting, but he is the great disruptor, and this is what Trump does. The reaction in Ottawa today, from Mélanie Joly and Carney's camp was, okay, more Trump. Don't worry about it.
All right. Well, there you go. Nice wrap up of everything going on. Tom, thank you so much. I appreciate it. You have yourself a great weekend.
Canadian women are looking for more out of themselves, their businesses, their elected leaders, and the world around them.
And that's why we're thrilled to introduce the Honest Talk podcast.
I'm Jennifer Stewart.
And I'm Catherine Clark. And in this podcast, we interview Canada's most inspiring women.
Entrepreneurs, artists, athletes, politicians, and newsmakers, all at different stages of their journey.
So if you're looking to connect, then we hope you'll join us.
Listen to the Honest Talk podcast on iHeartRadio or wherever you listen to your podcasts.